So today you're going to be comparing and ordering decimals. So on this example on page 669, at recess, Austin and his friends decided to have two races. One was 2/10 of a mile, and the other one was 4/10 of a mile. Which race was longer? So one way they want you to do it is to use a number line. I'm going to skip that way because the next way is a little bit easier. So the next way they want you to do is line up the place values and to see which one's bigger. It's kind of like when we compare non-decimals, whole numbers, it's the exact same thing. So like if we were comparing, let's say 26 and 24, we would line them up and we would say, oh, well, 2 is the same in the tens place, but 6 in the ones place is bigger than 4. So 26 would be greater than 24. It's the same thing, but the place value chart looks a little bit different because you got a decimal in here. So here is the ones place right here. Neither of these races was more than 1 mile long. So there's both zeros here. And then in the tenths, you've got 2 and 4. So in this case, you just have to figure out, well, what number is bigger, 2 or 4? Obviously, 4 is bigger. So 0.4 or 4/10 is greater than 0.2 or 2/10. Remember, the alligator's mouth always eats more. It eats the bigger one. So 4/10 is greater than 2/10. So the longer race was the one that was 4/10 of a mile. On these up here, they want us to order them from greatest to least. Remember, that one means big to small. Well, in order to do that, we have to figure out which one's bigger. So we've got 15 hundredths, 38 hundredths, and 3/10. So they've already lined it up for us. And when they lined it up, they saw that this 3/10 did not have a second number. So they knew that 30 hundredths was equivalent to 3/10. So they went ahead and just drew a 0 there because they're equivalent. They're the exact same thing. Now all of these decimals have the exact same amount of digits. Now they can just compare them and look at 15/10, 38/10, or 30/10. Well, if you look in the tenths place, that place is bigger. The 1 is the smallest number there. So that one obviously has to be the least. And then the 3 in this case, they're the same. So let's go to the next digit, 8 and 0. Well, 8 is bigger than 0. So this one has to be the greatest. And the 30 hundredths just comes in the middle. So when we order these from greatest to least, we're going to put the biggest one in the middle. Biggest one comes first. So that's 38 hundredths. 30 hundredths comes in the middle because it was not the least or the greatest. And then the least one, the smallest one, was 0.15 or 15 hundredths. And then also they gave us a good visual to check it. They kind of wrote it backwards though. I don't really like that. They should have done it, the 38 hundredths should have been here, but we can still see it. The 15 hundredths only has 15 little squares drawn in, so that is obviously smaller than this 30 hundredths right here, which is more. And then 38, it's not much bigger, but it is bigger than this 30 hundredths. So 38 hundredths was biggest, then 30 hundredths, then 15. So your work today is going to look very similar to this right here. So in order to do these, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I finally got my document camera from school, so you don't have to see my stool legs in my videos anymore. So same thing, you have to just figure out which one's bigger. In this case, they're side by side. One way you can do it is you can just look at it and see if they're in the same place. This 2 and this 6 are both in the tenths place. You can look at it that way. Or if you're kind of like me and I like to look at my numbers kind of more vertically, I can see it a little bit better, you can do that too. So now you're trying to figure out which one's bigger, 2 or 6. 6 is obviously bigger, so 6/10 is bigger. So the alligator's mouth is going to go that way. And this would be a really good problem to write the numbers below each other, because 4 and 4 are the same number, but this 4 is in a different place. So I'm going to just copy down this number. This is 4/100ths, and this is 4/10ths. So when we're comparing this one, 4 is in the tenths place, 4 is bigger than 0, and this 4 comes after. So this is saying there's 40/100ths in this one, or 4/100ths in this one. So the 4 that is closest to the decimal point, that 4/10ths, is going to be way, way bigger. Now on this one, I'm going to copy it down again. It's got an extra 0 at the end, but that's the exact same thing that we did up here with this 30. It was just a 3/10ths, but we made that 0. So the same thing, you can go backward. You can take that 0 away and look at it. Well, now those are the same exact thing. So those have to be equal. And then last one, 0.7. Again, same thing up here with this 30. We could write another 0 here, because this 7/10ths is also equivalent to 70/100ths. So now which one's bigger, 57 or 70? 70 is obviously bigger. Even though it looks like just a 7, we have to put that 0 in there to make sure that they have the same amount of digits, because you would think that 7 would be smaller than 57, which is right, but it's not really just a 7, it's a 70. And then order it from greatest to least. Make sure that you pay attention to those vocab words, because some of them might say least to greatest. So if you compare them all, I'm going to write them over here on the side. So I've got 0.2, 0.02, and 0.4. Now look in this first tenths place. What number is bigger? That 4 is the greatest. I'm going to put the G right there. 0 is less than 2, so that has to be the least. So that 2 has to come in the middle. So from greatest to least, it should go 4/10ths, 2/10ths, and then 2/100ths. And then same thing, let's do that very last one. So we've got 0.51, 0.34, and 0.46. So 5, 3, and 4, 5 out of those 3 numbers is the greatest, G. And then between 3 and 4, 3 is the least, so that has to be the least. So it should go 51/100ths, 46/100ths, and 34/100ths, just like that. So today when you do your work, make sure that you pay attention to two things for sure. Make sure that if you're ordering numbers, that you look at it and it says greatest to least or least to greatest. Make sure that you are doing it the right way. This is a really good strategy that I did over here. List them all and then just write like a G or an L next to the ones that are the greatest or the least. And then also pay attention to the place values. So like going back up here, make sure that you kind of look at them and make sure they have the same amount of digits. So on this one, I could have written a 0 here to make sure that they had 2 digits. So now I can look at it and say, well, which one's bigger, 40 or 4? Like I did with this one, I added that 0 to that 7 and made it a 70. Make sure that you're not just looking at the numbers that are there. Make sure that you're looking at the amount of digits that are there and what place that they're in. This place closest to the decimal is the tenths, which has more value than that next one, which is the hundredths. So make sure that when you are doing your work, they have the same amount of digits and that you pay attention to the greatest or least.